Lun Chou. Yeah.
Pei Lun Chou. Okay. Oh, Dulari Benji. We were worried about
Hi,
you.
Miss
Kahan gए तुम?
Dulari.
Hello, hi everyone.
Okay.
Hi,
So I think we
Christy.
can time check. We're 6:31. I think Mr. Kurti, if you like, you can.
Chitrakshi, are we ready to start?
Yes, just wait 1 minute for the people. Let the people join. So we can start.
Do we have the gentleman from NIA?
So he has come. Yes, sir.
So everyone is here. Okay. Okay. Then do we start?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, then thank you very much, Chitrakshi, and thank you, friends and colleagues. I'm delighted to and consider it my privilege to welcome you all to the 136th episode of the webinar series INHAF is curating for the past few years. The webinar series, as many of you probably know, is titled Rethinking City. And we are obviously also focusing on rethinking the Indian city. During this longish journey, which is going on for more than 3 years, we have had over 600 experts, professionals, community groups, and concerned citizens from all over the world presenting their views, perspectives, and solutions on a good number of urban themes and sub-themes. We have dealt with topics such as urban governance, municipal finance, public transport, climate change, infrastructure investment, slums, housing, poverty, informal economy, infrastructure investment, slums, housing, poverty, Gandhi and city as well. And we also engage in making knowledge products of over 260 hours of recording that we have of all these webinars. These recordings are all in public domain. They are on India's website as also on YouTube. So they're accessible. Anyone who wants to see it, refer it, is available. Today is the 4th episode of a 5-part webinar series on climate change and cities. We are looking at climate change in the context of cities and urbanization, and that we are doing in collaboration with CityNet. CityNet, as you know, is a regional network with over 30 years of experience and some 140 city and other members from the Asia region. We also have as partners CANSA, that is Climate Action Network South Asia, and they're doing pioneering work in the region on climate change. And we have All India Disaster Mitigation Institute, which has deep-rooted commitment to finding solutions to people's problems arising out of man-made and natural disasters. This collaboration with CityNet, with CANSA, with AIDMI has not only widened our reach, but has brought in many rich experiences from cities of the region. For instance, today's webinar presents climate action stories from Quezon City, Philippines, work and impact of City Gap Fund of Southeast and South Asia Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Emergency Energy, from Taipei City, and of course from CityNet, which Paulo is moderating. This international experiences and efforts are in juxtaposition with what Anshul Abbasi Bhai from NIUA and Dulari Ji from UA have to offer. And this all makes it a very rich exchange and very relevant learning experience. Climate change, I know, should not emphasize again, but climate change is no longer a distant possibility projected by some scientists, but a very powerful reality. It's a visible and real threat, and preparing for it globally, preparing for it regionally, nationally, locally, at the city level, at the family and community level, is an inescapable compulsion now. And as it demands some far-reaching changes in the way we live, way we grow, way we develop, way we produce, way we transact, way we commute and relate, it is to be seen in the context of economies and societies we have created. As it demands a new equation with the nature and our natural and built environment, it also demands rethinking our cities. So that's the context in which this webinar series have been organized, and we have completed 3 webinars already. Before I tell you why we are on this webinar series for long, let me inform you, especially those who are interested, that we are presenting some 20 new webinars in the coming few months. That includes a series of 6 webinars on an imaginative slum upgrading program in Orissa, which is showing a way to deal with the slum problem creatively in our cities. What is happening in big cities and small towns of Orissa has such potential for adoption and application in other cities of the country and even in the region, even globally, that we have named the series Slums Are Solvable. And the learning is so relevant that we have 6 partner agencies in organizing the series, including UN Habitat and Cities Alliance, 2 international agencies handling habitat and slum issues globally. The inaugural event takes place on 30th of September, and we will see to it that you are reached and, if possible, kindly attend the first event and subsequent events as well. And finally, though I've said it many times, let me tell you once again why we are doing this webinars on Rethinking City for a long time and what are we seeking to achieve. It's about highlighting India's urban challenge. As a matter of fact, highlighting global urban challenge. Also cultivating an active constituency prepared to contribute ideas and building a wider societal partnership to meet the challenge properly. And that is because India's urban challenge is not only solving the city's current problems of water and pollution and jobs and unplanned growth, it is also cities being an indisputed future of the country. I don't know many people know, but more than half of India's 1,660 million people will be living in cities by 2050, in just 25 more years. This essence of the challenge is shaping a new society. It is not looking at numbers, it's not looking at water. It is essentially talking about a whole new society. Seeing the city not only as places, but also as people, and also making cities economically productive, socially just, environmentally sustainable, politically participatory, culturally vibrant, technologically adaptive, nature sensitive, and people friendly is a stupendous task. And I think, I continuously repeat this 7 and 8 adjectives to cities because they are very relevant. And it tells us how important, how stupendous is the task before us. We know that our cities, as they are now, are anything but that. And the trends and signals seem tilted in the opposite direction, not what we aspire. The first part of the challenge is undoing what is not acceptable and what is not working, also finding correctives and putting in place new systems and institutions for better cities. We need to define all the characteristics first that we talk about all the time. What is inclusivity? What is sustainability? What will mean resilient city? What is climate responsiveness? And what is even participation? Because all this demand not only non-carbon emitting fuel, but also a transparent democratic polity. So it's across the board. We are talking not only of the physical place, we're talking about people, we're talking about political system, we're talking about institutions. And what we are doing for the last 3 years is a very small part of the effort that is required to building a wider societal partnership. So with this rather longish introduction about the webinar series, I hand this over to my friend, Paulo. But before I do that, Paulo, let me introduce you briefly. Paulo, prior to working in CityNet, spent 10 years working in a national local government association based in Manila, Philippines. He held various supervisory positions in both regular and foreign assisted programs and projects that focus on urban development. So he has quite a rich background in urban development. Some of this include public procurement, disaster risk and resilience, local health development, and localizing minimum development goals and sustainable development goals. In the CityNet, Pauli, among other tasks, manages CityNet's services program and provides membership services to Philippines and Fiji CityNet members. So with that introduction of Pauli, and with my grateful thanks to the members of the panel today, I hand over this to Pauli to start webinar today. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Kurti. Can you hear me? We're all good with audio? All right, so yeah, thank you, Sir Kurti, for that wonderful introduction and also the rich context setting. We've talked about the inescapable phenomenon that is climate change and the need for rethinking as it impacts across all aspects of our lives. And for today's webinar session, we are very much privileged because just to emphasize, this is being co-hosted by CityNet. Again, CityNet is a regional city network for cities in the Asia Pacific. Our headquarters is in Seoul. I'm actually reporting to you from Seoul City. And for this particular session, we'll be bringing some of our members showcasing their best practices on local climate implementation. and we're very happy that they're taking time with us. So we hope I'm looking forward to a productive session with all of you, especially to our participants. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you our first speaker, who will present on the climate actions of Taipei City. We'd like to call Ms. If you can also introduce yourself, Ms. Pei, as we go through the presentation. So you have the floor, Ms. Pei Lun Chou, who will present the climate action implementation of Taipei City.
Yeah, you're muted, ma'am.
You muted, ma'am. You're muted.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pei Lun Chou. It's my honor to share Taipei City's climate action with you. This year, Taipei ranks 8th in the 2025 Happy City Index and also ranks 4th globally for environmental friendly indicators. In terms of resource recycling, Taipei has a strong recycling culture with a 67% recycling rate. During the 10th anniversary meeting of Paris Agreement this year, our mayor also shared the garbage collection policy of Taipei, which surprised other participating cities. Taipei City took the lead in the nation in declaring 2050 net zero emissions goal in 2021, and at the same time formulated the Taipei City self-government audience for net zero emission management. We have set the target to reduce 40% carbon emission by 2030, compared to the base year 2005. And net zero emissions by 2050. Taipei City's carbon emissions in 2023 have decreased by 16%, and the per capita carbon emission is 4.35 tons. Taipei City's self-government audience for net zero emission management is based on 8 core elements. All city departments actively plan and implement specific policy measures to regulate deep carbon reduction and climate change adaptation in the public and private sector, and are working together to promote the city's net zero transformation. In addition to strengthen climate law, Taipei City is also promoting 4 solutions for net zero transformation based on local conditions. The solution include cooling city, green transportation city, resilient city, and net zero new life. The purpose is to encourage citizens to reduce carbon emissions by changing their daily habit. Taipei is prone to heat and humidity due to its basin-like terrain and high urbanization. In order to make Taipei cooler and more comfortable, our city has rolled out 3 main strategies. Make perceived temperature 2 degrees C cooler, reduce carbon emissions by making buildings more energy efficient, and plant more trees and increase green coverage spaces. To make the street cooler, save power in buildings, and increase intensive green spaces so the citizens feel comfortable to be outside. Beitou Shiling Technology Park is the first benchmark smart ecosystem demonstration park in Taipei City. It integrates smart, health, digital, and emerging technology, and is constructed from 3 aspects: life, ecologic, and production. The technology part incorporates energy saving, greener and water conservation into engineering plan and design. It introduced appropriate facilities such as smart applications and ecological methods in various public projects to achieve the goal of smart city and sponge city. Vehicle electrification is an important aspect of our net zero policy. Since 2018, Taipei has steadily replaced diesel buses with electric ones and offers subsidies per electric bus operation to speed up adoption on high-capacity routes. Our target is to replace all diesel buses and achieve citywide electrification by 2030. We hope to create a friendly environment for electric vehicles and make transportation more convenient. Taipei always put people in first place in our city planning. We make biking easier with over 1,500 U-Bike stations and promote the first 30 minutes free policy, which boosting usage growth by 50% and shifting 22% of car and motorbike users to bikes. We also promote an event called My Carbon Reduction Passbook. Citizens are encouraged to join the event via mobile phone app. They can check their carbon saving amount, join lucky draw to win prize, and make daily commuting part of low carbon lifestyle. Taipei City launched the J-Road Water Pipeline Project to build a 2.8 kilometer intake pipeline in the Beishi River below Jet Reservoir. Started in 2019. The construction completed after 5 years. In May 2024, the pipeline began operating on June 20 with a daily intake of 2.7 million CMD. It ensures supply for 6 million people and enhances the water supply resilience and raw water quality stability in the Great Taipei area. Since net zero becomes global urgent policy, Taipei City Chamber of Commerce specially initiate the Taipei Net Zero 101 plan, use the city's industrial innovation and advantage to cooperate with the city government. The target is with 14 menu types and complete 101 net zero menus within 3 years. This effort further demonstrates public-private determination to work together for sustainable development. Through this plan, Taipei's path toward net zero becomes more concrete and solid. To help reaching the 2050 net zero goal, we kick off a lucky draw event called Save 3% Electricity for a chance to win 100,000. Over 12,000 homes joined the event last year. This year, the prize pool has grown to 4 million with 400 winners and a top prize of 100,000 until the end of 2025. Residents can register on their event website and start saving electricity in their daily life for a chance to win the prize. This event encourages our citizens to change their daily life habits while reduce their carbon emission at the same time. And thank you for your listening. Let us work together to make the world a better, happier place for sustainability. And I have to say sorry, I really have an important meeting later, so please allow me to log off and wish you have a successful event today. And I will ask my colleague to help to answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pei. Can we give a round of applause to Ms. Pei Lun for that very wonderful, I must say, and specific actions on how Taipei is implementing its local climate agenda. And I like how it's actually When I say specific, because it's very clear in their vision that they're promoting a net zero future, and how they're actually integrating concepts like net zero means resilient city, net zero means being cool, and also being probably there's another one, going to nature based. And I'm just thinking, because I know Taipei is a developed cities, advanced in terms of technology. I'm just thinking, though each city has its own distinct conditions, what advice or recommendations can Taipei share to the developing cities of Asia in terms of improving their local climate implementation? If you can probably just give us some general advice, so we can actually take it, we can serve it as a takeaway in this webinar. You're muted.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Heavy government about solution including cooling city, green transportation city, and recycling city, and the net zero new life. I think we will continue about the four solutions and cooling about this one.
All right,
Probably for a solution about Taipei City to continue reduce the carbon emission by the changing their daily habits.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, it appears that during the presentation, Taipei is really putting people first in the planning, and also attracting people to, engaging people to participate. Since in the last slide, they were even thinking of having a contest on those households that have actually decreased their electric usage. So in that way, that's actually very interesting, and perhaps for other cities to follow. So with that, again, thank you, Taipei. Please stay until the end of our webinar. We can our audience, you can actually also ask questions in our Q&A. So that's our presentation from Taipei City. So from there, we're asking another city presenter from Quezon City. We have Mr. Vincent Vinarao, the Assistant Department Head of the Quezon City Climate Change Environmental Sustainability. I'll just introduce him first. He's serving as the Assistant Department Head of the Quezon City Climate Change Environmental Sustainability Department, where he's playing a key role in advancing the city's environmental programs and climate action agenda. With extensive experience in local governance and sustainability initiatives, he supports the design, the implementation and monitoring of policies and projects that address climate resilience, environmental protection, and sustainable urban development. His work focuses on strengthening Quezon City's commitment to achieving its climate goals, fostering cross-sectoral partnerships, and ensuring that community-driven initiatives contribute to a greener, more resilient city. So, Sir Vincent, please take the floor, and we look forward to your presentation.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Polly. Is my audio clear? Yeah, okay. On behalf of Quezon City, I am honored to join you today for this webinar series. In my presentation, I will walk you through Quezon City's climate journey, the institutional and policy frameworks that enable us to act, our long-term climate planning, the technical assistance and global engagements that support our work, and finally, the barriers we continue to face and the ways we are moving forward, especially in terms of financing our climate actions. Um, and through this, I hope to highlight how a highly urbanized city like Quezon City is finding opportunities to align governance, partnerships, and finance in pursuit of climate resilience and carbon neutrality by 2050. Just an overview, Quezon City is the most populous city in the Philippines with over 3.2 million residents and the largest city in Metro Manila by land area, covering 161.12 square kilometers. Its scale and density make it a critical player in shaping how the metropolis responds to the climate crisis. And beyond its urban character, Quezon City is also rich in green and civic spaces. Often, we are described as the largest, last green lung of Metro Manila because we host the La Mesa Watershed and Eco Park, the Ninoy Aquino Parks and Wildlife Center, and the iconic Quezon Memorial Circle. So this combines history, recreation, and community life, and this also serves as vital biodiversity refuge. The city is equally a hub for national institutions in higher education. We are hosting the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and Ateneo de Manila University. That also provides a strong foundation for research, innovation, and leadership. Yet, despite these assets, Quezon City continues to face serious climate risks from flooding and extreme heat. And just to give you an example, just last August 30, um, we have a severe thunderstorm which brought almost a week's worth of rain in just a few hours, which triggered flooding across major roads and low-lying areas here in the city. So these challenges highlight why the city has had to put in place strong institutional and policy enablers to safeguard both its people and its future. To respond to these risks, Quezon City has embedded climate action into its governance framework. A key step was the declaration of a climate emergency, which allowed the city to prioritize and mobilize resources specifically for climate action. We have also leveraged the local disaster risk reduction and management fund, not just for immediate disaster response, but as a financing tool for resilient building measures that reduce vulnerability before disasters strike. Institutionally, the creation of the Climate Change and Environmental Sustainability Department, which our department just created in 2001. So our department consolidated efforts across adaptation, mitigation, and environmental protection. And this whole of government structure ensures that climate action is not an isolated program, but a cross-cutting priority integrated into city planning and service delivery. Together, these enablers provide the backbone for Quezon City's climate agenda, setting the stage for advanced planning, partnerships, and investments. Building on these foundations, Quezon City developed its enhanced local climate change action plan for 2021 to 2050. And then I'd like to share that this is via the technical assistance from C40. This plan provides a comprehensive framework that lays out both mitigation and adaptation strategies across energy, transport, waste, biodiversity, and human security. At the core of this plan are clear targets, which are first, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030 compared to the projected business as usual scenario, with the commitment to pursue net zero emissions by 2050. On the other hand, for adaptation, the city aims to increase the adaptive capacity of communities and strengthen the resilience of natural ecosystems against the impacts of climate change, while also maximizing opportunities for mitigation. To turn these ambitions into action, the plan clearly defines the role of departments, communities, and civil society, ensuring a whole of government and whole of society approach. So the institutional framework is further reinforced by the establishment of the Climate Action Council through an executive order. And the council brings together key departments and stakeholders, embedding climate action across the city's operations and governance structures. This combination of long-term planning as well as dedicated governance ensures that climate action is not just aspirational but institutionalized, a framework that not only allows the city to fully leverage technical assistance and partnerships, but also provides a model other urban centers can learn from. So our journey is strengthened by its membership in international networks. Um, we always acknowledge the importance of the networks around globally and locally. Beginning with CityNet, of course, which has provided a platform for benchmarking and collaboration with other Asian cities, pursuing sustainable urban development. Through CityNet and other global networks, of course, we are also a member of C40 Cities, the Resilient Cities Network. We gain access to technical assistance, grant opportunities, and peer-to-peer exchanges that expand the city's capacity to plan and implement climate solutions. So these platforms allow us to learn from the experience of other cities while also sharing our own approaches and innovations. And by participating in these international communities, Quezon City is able to leverage both knowledge and resources, ensuring that our local climate agenda benefits from global expertise while also contributing lessons from our own journey. Webinars like this further reinforce that cycle of exchange, reminding us that city-scale climate action is strongest when cities learn, collaborate, and act together. Through our international networks, Quezon City is not only able to learn from other cities, but also to access technical assistance that help us put ideas into practice. We know that as a city, we still have limitations in terms of resources, capacity, and even access to climate finance. So these partnerships allows us to bridge those gaps. One example is the UK Aid Urban Climate Action Program, or UCAP. With this support, we have been able to chart pathways for solar deployment, strengthening our green building code, preparing tools for climate finance, developing monitoring systems, and mainstreaming inclusive climate action. These outputs give us very practical guidance for implementation, not just policies on paper. Another example is generation restoration. So this is led by the United Nations Environment Program. This focuses on biodiversity and ecosystem rehabilitation. Our target here is the Payatas Controlled Disposal Facility, which is a closed landfill. So the project combines technical studies with citizen engagement, reimagining a once degraded space as a site for resilience, biodiversity, and community learning. And just recently, we are working with C40 in developing our cooling roadmap and heat action plan. So the assistance is helping us prepare for the growing risks of extreme heat by looking at building design, grassroots actions, and public health measures. These are just some of the technical assistance we have received and continue to receive. And together they provide the depth and resources we need to move our climate agenda from planning into real action on the ground. For the challenges and ways forward, well, despite these advances, Quezon City faces significant challenges in scaling up its climate ambition. Like many cities in the global south, we encounter budget constraints that limit project implementation. Accessing international climate finance remains complex, with many funds requiring technical capacities and compliance that stretch local resources. At the same time, rapid urban growth, informal settlements, and competing development priorities make it challenging to balance immediate social needs with long-term resilience investments. Um, Looking ahead, the way forward lies in strengthening partnerships and building capacity. This includes expanding access to innovative financing mechanisms while continuing to leverage the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Fund and our climate emergency framework for local resources. We also value in deepening collaboration with development partners, technical networks, and peer cities so that knowledge exchange translates into more inclusive and practical climate action on the ground for a more efficient use of resources. Um, and just to add, most importantly, we aim to invest in the institutional systems and technical expertise that will allow Quezon City to not only access funds but also to manage them effectively and deliver real benefits to communities. Um, Aside from conventional financing streams, we continue to explore non-traditional and innovative financial models. This includes public-private partnership transactions, joint venture agreements, and other instruments. And in this way, we believe that challenges can become stepping stones toward more resilient and more sustainable and inclusive urban climate action. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Sir Vincent, for that wonderful presentation, giving us a comprehensive list of. I'm s- I'm thinking like policy wise, it seems like Quezon City is updating its policy on climate and really also addressing a lot of policy gaps at the local level by having all these policy mechanisms that will enable people to also empower themselves to address the changing climate even at their local level. I'm also seeing, I also appreciate what he presented something about leveraging international partnerships, networking as a strategic tool to benchmark others, but at the same time also to promote best practices from Quezon City to the global south, because that's also a very effective way of not just only to be inspired but to look for cost cutting solutions, like solutions that will not probably require a lot of investments, but trying to just really borrow it from the others and improving it and also basing it on the local context. So we'll get back to you, Sir Vincent, later for the open forum. But then if you have time while we wait, if you feel like for other speakers, we're seeing some questions in the Q&A. So later you're also free to answer the questions that are actually in the Q&A box. So from Quezon City, we're going to India. We have with us Mr. Anshul Abbasi from the National Institute of Urban Affairs, who's the lead for policy and planning. Let me have the privilege to introduce you, sir, before you present on behalf of your organization. Anshul Abbasi is an urban development professional with over 9 years of experience leading transformative climate action initiatives across Indian cities. So as lead policy and planning at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, he has played a pivotal role in advancing India's urban climate agenda. He has led the formulation of climate action plans for cities such as Pune, Leh, Junagadh, and Jamnagar, enabling the integration of emissions reduction strategies and climate resilience into local governance system. He was instrumental in shaping the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework and the special focus on urban planning, green cover, and biodiversity, empowering over 100 cities to evaluate and strengthen their climate performance. Currently, he's leading in the development of the disaster management plan for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, integrating climate risk and business continuity frameworks for Indian cities. He is also the architect of the Climate Data Observatory, a pioneering platform that democratizes climate data access for cities and stakeholders. though through his work, he bridges data policy and practice to promote sustainable urban transformation and resilient growth, especially in the built environment sector. So, Mr. Anshul, please take the floor. I'd love to hear what you do, what the Institute does on behalf of Indian cities. And yeah, if you can give us the general overview of what's happening in India and how are they actually also implementing and improving their local climate implementation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauli. I would first like to thank the organizers for having me here today. And I'll just take a moment to share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yep,
Is it?
see it now.
Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you once again. I'll just start with a brief of what NIUA is. National Institute of Urban Affairs is basically a think tank to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs in India. We support ministry with policy. We support ministry with programs, capacity building. So basically, everything under the urban which ministry takes care of, we are kind of mandated to support cities for the same. And at NIUA, we have 6 centers, and I work with a center dedicated to climate. So that's Climate Center for Cities, and it was established 5 years ago with a mandate to support ministry first with the climate policies, secondly for mainstreaming climate actions in India. So before that, whatever development in the name of climate or sustainable development which was happening, it was majorly fund led. So if there was fund in the solid waste domain or maybe in the water domain, the actions in the cities were implemented as per the funding or as per the sectors. There was a need for a comprehensive framework and for kind of tailor-made recommendations and move to a need-based model, and that's where the center was established. And for 5 years we have been working closely with cities. I'll not go into much of the details. This is just a short background of what we were established for. Moving further, my talk today would focus on the climate action plans which were developed by the Climate Center for Cities. So, just for information, we did 4 climate action plans for Leh from Ladakh, Jamnagar and Junagadh from Gujarat, and Pune from Maharashtra. So the idea was to take a small city, medium cities, and large cities and have an understanding of how the process is, what are the issues, what are the challenges, and what can be taken forward. So the reason of doing climate action plans was that you can see on your screen the impact of climate change which Indian cities have been facing. It was to understand the larger vulnerability of the country. And if, as you can see, 31 million people are vulnerable, especially in coastal regions in India. There has been a rise of 75% in terms of heat waves, which impacts public health of the vulnerable communities, such as the informal vendor, construction workers. There are 77 cities in India which are prone to cyclones, more than 140 cities prone to flooding. So, in a summary, that the vulnerability of cities or susceptibility to hazards is going up. And in return, what's happening in terms of the economic losses, if we just look at the few numbers, so India required around 2.5 trillion to 3.5 trillion dollars. It's an estimate which was identified for 2015 to 2030. This was to meet the India's nationally determined contributions. And as you can see on the right side, the historical economic losses over the past decade, the total economic loss due to the natural hazards or disasters in India is estimated to around 100 to 150 billion dollars. So the idea here is that while India is struggling to become a developed country and it's investing immensely into infrastructure projects, but parallelly it's also bearing the brunt of the disasters and the frequency and intensity of uh, which is going high day by day, and it's affecting our GDP overall, and it hits us with a massive number on an annual basis. So that's the challenge in hand. that investing in resilient infrastructure is something which the country needs to prioritize, addressing disaster recovery cost as well. And I think for that, what is required is efficient resource allocation and building resilience into our programs and policies. So, with this in mind, we started with the exercise of creating climate action plans for cities, because cities are not only the major contributors to emissions, or they're also the kind of the ones who bear the brunt of the climate hazards. And then there lies a lot of potential for action as well. With that in mind, we developed the philosophy for climate action plan, linking it to the national and the international commitments and goals. So we have the Paris Agreement at India. We have around 8 submissions under the National Action Plan for Climate Change, and one of them is National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, to which our CAP methodology is linked to. We focus on these 5 sectoral areas when we do a climate action plan. So we look at urban planning, energy, green buildings, mobility, air quality, water and waste management. So this kind of becomes the skeleton of the climate action plan, which NIO has been developing. I'll just quickly take you through the process. I don't think we have enough time to go it in detail. I would rather cover, spend time on the learnings that we have after doing the climate action plan. So this is the process we followed. We created a baseline in each of the cities, and this was based on the framework we have. We developed the future uh, and the present GHG inventory, did the climate projections. We developed the vision along with the stakeholders at the city level, and then we created a roadmap for actions along with the implementation strategy. So this is an example from Leh. So I'll be talking about Leh a bit from the point of view of small towns and what's happening in terms of climate action planning. We did a baseline. We kind of gathered data from ground, from secondary resources, that what is the scenario of disaster in the city, how prone the city is to flood. Leh being a tourist town in India, for the benefit of people who are not aware, as you can see that I just deliberately put this slide, and I would like to spend some time here. The kind of seasonal variation in electricity consumption that you can see is because it's a extremely cold climate, and it's a tourist hotspot as well. So in the winters, the electricity consumption goes up because the government buildings require a lot of heating. They burn a lot of fuel. But on the other hand side, if you see the petrol and diesel consumption of the city, uh, it suddenly changes from May to October, because these are the tourist seasons. So one thing is, while we are developing climate action plans for small cities, it's not just the population of the city that matters, it's also the floating population. And a lot of small towns, medium towns in India, they are even either side of pilgrimage, they are tourist towns. So even that needs to be considered, because that is a major factor leading to the emissions. Then we did a few of analysis towards the mobility, air quality, try to understand the network, what is the water scenario, how are the springs doing, uh, what is the water supply available, how much is the degradation. So not going into the details, but this was just to show you the process. We did the climate projections for the end of the century. What would be the impact? This is how the GHG inventory looks like. It's amazing to see that Leh has 33% of emissions just from transportation, which I don't think any other small city in India would have. And we mapped the kind of contributors to the GHG emissions. What would be the future scenario? We did a detailed risk assessment specifically for floods, because they being the more relevant ones. And that's how we developed recommendations. So Leh came up with a vision of net zero by 2047 and making the city climate resilient. And this was the same approach which we followed for other cities, and kind of identified the actions, and also linking it to the timeline, that by what actions, what percentage by 2047 will help us go net zero, and also make the city more resilient. So these are the kind of projects policy plans we suggested for the city of Leh. It included reduction of freshwater usage, improving groundwater recharge, mitigating mudslides, managing flood water, managing waste. CND waste is becoming a big problem for the city, and it is going to go up. Transitioning to EV vehicles. So I'll skip these slides and come to the major crux of the talk today, that if we look at the climate action plans, and while the major cities have the capacity to develop them and they're also implementing, what about the small towns? So there are a few critical insights which we gained. So what we realized, specifically for a small and medium town, the community led initiatives really work well. So if the community is not included right from the starting at the consultation level, uh, the everything messes up. So there won't be any ownership of the implementation of actions in future. Second thing, we identified the traditional knowledge. Reviving the conventional wisdom is very crucial. Like in case of Leh, the spring system works amazingly well there, and instead of focusing on a 24/7 water supply, maybe doesn't work sense in terms of economics and the impact on ecology, but the dependence on the traditional systems and maintaining them makes more sense. The role of NGOs and local unions is crucial. They are there on the ground, they understand city or the town much better than someone like us who's sitting at in Delhi at NIUA. But we have our own skill sets, they have their own skills. How do we marry them? That's where the success of a climate action plan lies in. Considering the industrial sector, usually that exist outside the city, the at the peri-urban areas, at the transitional areas, it's very important because it is also impacting the city. So just looking within the boundary of a ULB doesn't make sense. Replication versus local solutions, replication from larger cities is something that doesn't work. Enhancing institutional and technical capacity is crucial. Revising planning bylaws, looking at the special governance areas. Like in Leh, we have a cantonment board. How much of that can be included in a climate action plan? Similarly, for a small city, how much of the special areas can be involved is something which needs to be checked. And I think in terms of migration, there's a lot of climate migration and urbanization which is happening. What is going to be the impact of that on city is something. These are the few kind of learnings we found out, and on the basis of it, we created this rough structure of a enabling environment. So I would like to summarize my talk today is that while a lot of organizations are focusing on developing a climate action plan for cities, the biggest question is that a climate action plan is not a mandatory plan or document. Cities who are proactive, who are willing, who want to be the forerunners, they are investing in it. They can afford it. There's a data cost to a climate action plan, there is a preparation cost to it. And the second question, which I pose to all of you today, the components or the recommendations which come out of a climate action plan, very limited of that, around 20 to 30%, is something which maybe a ULB in India, a municipal corporation, a council, or a committee can maybe take care of those. There's a lot of recommendations and actions which are dependent on the state level agencies, which are dependent on the national government. And that's where this term enabling environment becomes really important. It's not just about creating a plan for the city. For a successful implementation of that document to see the light of the day, there is an enabling environment which is needed for cities. And I start with the first point is that there is a need of a policy support, government backing from the national and the state for cities. There's a need of revising the planning norms. For example, we have the URDP 5 guidelines, we have the model building bylaws. Within the climate change scenario, the intensity and frequency of hazards have gone really high. We need to revise our planning norms and building bylaws significantly. Even if you look at the states, we have, while one thing can work in one city, but maybe within a same state, there could be a geographical diversity, there could be a difference in the seismic zonation. how do we make tailor-made zonal wise norms is something which is needed for successful climate action plan strategy, which is long term and which is sustainable. Next is having risk informed guidelines, having risk informed missions. So the every penny which is spent by the national or state government in cities should be risk informed. It should be climate resilient. Cities struggle with data when they need to create a baseline from a climate action plan or a projection. The data, basic data, is not available with them. Then the most important, and that's why it's in the center, it's the institutions, like who coordinates with whom, who would be responsible for the climate action in a city level, at a state level. So if climate cells have to be established at state and city level, what should be the roles and responsibilities, what should be the mechanisms? Then for implementing actions, from where will the finance going to come in? If it's going to be city's own funds, then is do we have the fiscal or financial capacity at a city level? For that, capacity building, both technical and financial, of city officials is crucial. And most importantly, it's the research that how the climate change has been impacting the city and is going to impact in future, that needs to be studied. And something which we tend to miss on, the government procurement processes, the city procurement process do not sometimes appreciate the green and sustainable materials, which stops a lot of good work that can be done in cities. So there's a need to uh, revising this. So the whole idea of presenting this to you was that while a city can have an amazing climate action plan, but it for it to come into reality, these are the supporting elements, and maybe these are not the all. There could be many that could be added to it. I'll just end with this slide, that what can be done for a successful climate action plan implementation at a city level. I call it as a 10I strategy. So you can see it all starts with I, and then there is a pre-implementation phase, there is a during implementation phase, and then there is a post-implementation. So if you see the first four I solutions and innovation, and to some for any climate action plan in the pre-phase. So by identification, I mean cities should identify the vulnerable areas, the vulnerabilities. They should have identification of databases. From inquiry, I mean there should be a scientific inquiry of the existing norms, whether they are suitable, are they relevant, do they need revision, and what would be the climate scenario after maybe 50 years or 70 years. Then establishing institutions, restructuring the urban governance is something which needs to be done. And then innovation is something, a term which we usually miss on when we look at the sustainable or urban development or climate action planning. It's like tailoring climate responses is really important, instead of replicating uh, something which has worked maybe in a big city. So it's about replicating the principle and not the practice as such. Then how inclusive a climate action be? Is it addressing all the vulnerable groups? It is addressing the informal areas? Is it talking about the people living in the slum? To implement that, from where the investment is going to come in? And it's not just about always investments or maybe some kind of a loan or a grant. It's also about incentives. You can achieve scale by, and especially the climate mitigation projects, they can easily be kind of scaled up using mere basic incentives or subsidies. So this is where our cities need to look into. And the last phase, I think it's the infrastructure development, instilling the responsible behavior through IEC activities and monitoring the impact on an annual basis, that whatever action was planned, whether the amount of benefit which was aspired or thought of from that has been achieved or not. So I think with that, I'll end my talk today. I think I've taken a little more time than was allocated to me, but I would leave you with this 10I strategy and look forward to hearing from the participants in case they have any questions.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me? Hello? All right. Can you hear me, Kurti?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I lost there. My connection was a bit unstable. Thank you, Sir Anshul, for giving us the presentation. I really like it in terms of like underscoring careful planning on it's not just really developing the plan, but also looking at the different dimensions on how to address the impacts of climate change. In particular, like say for even for a small city, you just really can plan for just the population of that city itself. Especially if it's a tourist city, you have to also plan for those transients. For we call it the daytime population because of some factors that that are actually also distinct or peculiar to that city. You have to take note of the peculiarities of the distinct conditions of the city in terms of planning it to mitigate and to adapt and mitigate the impacts on climate change. So that's actually one. And also definitely the 10 I's are very useful frameworks, especially in the planning. And again, it doesn't really end there. You have to probably do some reiteration in the planning. And the most important is the implementation, because that actually what that's the success. That's actually that's where the success lies in terms of the execution. And yes, we've underscored or we've mentioned a lot of enabling environment, enabling mechanisms, and one of which really is definitely the financial aspect to it. So what will actually set the motion for these climate projects to be implemented? And of course, with our cities, with especially our developing cities in Asia, there's always a question on the budget constraint, on how to source funds, not just within the government, but also they have to be innovative and also smart in actually accessing financing, not just within the local governments, but and national government, but also from the private sector. Unfortunately, we have a lot of partners, global partners, who are actually extending help to our cities in the global south to develop different projects, to package it in a way that's also helpful for others and become really more attractive to get it funded. But most importantly, that is actually that project reflects really the aspirations and actually what reflects the clear need from the people. So thank you again, Sir Anshul, for that. And doing the segue relative to how do we support these projects, I'd like to call on Ms. Jazlyn Lee from the City Gap Fund, who will present to us based on their experience on the project preparation for cities, with the overview of how do we actually make the proposals work, especially in terms of making it more attractive and making a big case for others to support our local climate actions. But first, let me have the honor to introduce Ms. Jazlyn. She's the engagement lead for Southeast Asia and South Asia, the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, or GCOM Gap Fund Partnership. She's leading the city engagement on the City Climate Finance Gap Fund in Southeast Asia and South Asia. She's facilitating partnerships and promotes low carbon and climate resilience actions, implementations by cities, by supporting cities in improving their access to climate financing and resources from project preparation facilities such as the GAP Fund. Jazlyn has previously worked as the consultant and a program officer with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime on tackling waste trafficking issue. And she also worked at the Worldwide Fund for Nature, or WWF, as the Southeast Asia Regional Coordinator for the Extended Producer Responsibility, or the EPR project. I'm certain that Ms. Jazlyn will share, based from her experience, on how probably we can improve our making a good case of different projects so that others can actually also support us, not just so that we can have more access to financing, not just within our government itself. So, Ms. Jazlyn, please take the floor.
Thank you so much, Polly, for the very comprehensive introduction. I'll just take 1 second to quickly load my slides, and I will start my presentation right away. Okay, once again, thank you so much for having me here today to share with you some information about the City Climate Finance Gap Fund in this webinar series on adapting together climate stories and strategies from Asian cities. So my name is Jazlyn. I'm from the City Climate Finance Gap Fund and the GCOM partnership. So I think previously, Polly also quickly touched upon most of the cities are having challenges, especially when it comes to accessing climate finance, because this is very crucial when, especially when cities are looking for resources as well as financing when it comes to actual implementation, project implementation on the ground. Here, I just would like to quickly touch upon in terms of how do we overcome these kind of challenges, especially when it comes to accessing climate finance, including for secondary as well as for smaller cities as well. So I think in order for us to overcome the challenge of accessing climate finance as well as project financing, I think it is very crucial for us to be able to systematically break down the project cycle into manageable stages. For example, here you'll be able to see even during the early project preparation stage, it involves several stages as well. From planning stage, cities looking into developing project concept, conducting scoping studies, and then you move on to pre-feasibility, then feasibility study. So here you'll be able to see different stages actually requires very different set of objectives as well as activities as well. So by breaking it down into different manageable stages, you'll be able to identify what are the priorities for each of the stages of project preparation cycle. And here you'll be able to see as well what sort of resources or financing mechanism you can potentially tap into as well. For example, during the early project preparation stage, cities can actually look into applying for grants or even technical assistance for project preparation facilities, such as the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, which is one of the project preparation facilities out there. So the Gap Fund has been supporting over 200 cities in different regions, helping cities to conduct project preparation to ensure that the project proposals or your project ideas are investment ready before you proceed to the next step where you look for project financing or even looking into potential investment as well. And then in the so once you completed the project preparation cycle, then you move on to implementation. So that is when you can look into other financing mechanism. For example, some of the speakers earlier has mentioned about PPP, for example, looking into blended finance, or even benefiting from private investment or even loans as well. So this is where the City Climate Finance Gap Fund comes in. So it is one of the project preparation facilities. basically providing technical assistance to support cities during the early project preparation stage, helping cities to develop bankable project and to develop investment-ready project as well. It is jointly implemented between the World Bank together with the European Investment Bank and GIZ. And of course, when it comes to implementation and reaching out to wider cities, the GET Fund Secretariat also working very closely with partners, including GCOM, C40, ICLEI, and other partners as well. So this is just to quickly share with everyone that in terms of the scope of project preparation support from the GET Fund. So as you can see from here, it is very much focusing on early project preparation stage. So the GET Fund provide technical assistance in the form of helping cities to develop, for example, climate action plan, disaster risk reduction master plan, up to the stage of pre-feasibility study. So some of the questions where if some of the cities here who are keen to look into the possibility of applying for project preparation support from the GET Fund, some of the cities, some of the questions that you can keep in mind in terms of how GET Fund can help you to conduct assessment and analysis. For example, GET Fund can help you to understand whether or not your project ideas are financially viable or economically viable for you to proceed further. Are there any risks in relation to your project ideas, especially when it comes to implementation of new project concept or new technologies or looking into new infrastructure as well? And how do you develop a risk mitigation plan as part of your project proposal? And how do you build a business model around your project idea as well? So those are some of the questions that GET Fund will be able to help you to provide more assessment. So as you can see from here, in terms of the eligible sectors, it covers pretty wide sectors, including helping cities with green mobility project, energy efficiency related project, solid waste management, and adaptation related projects as well. So I'm just going to quickly share two examples where cities receive technical assistance from the GET Fund. So the first example is Ahmedabad City on the project in relation to low carbon and resilient municipal service delivery. So what GET Fund has supported is to support the city in terms of development of a GIS-based systems in order for the city to be able to identify climate risk hotspots, and also to develop city-level greenhouse gas emission estimation models as well, especially for land use, reduction of heat stress, flooding management, and also how can city can actually implement some of the project in order to reduce greenhouse gas emission within the city. Other technical assistance, including recommendations for low carbon and resilient spatial as well as land use planning systems. And last but not least is the development of a strategy to help city to prioritize their investment, as well as identifying potential financing mechanism for mitigation and adaptation intervention that has been identified. And the second example is for actually several cities, for a group of cities in Indonesia. So here I would just like to quickly highlight that it is possible for several cities to jointly apply for technical assistance from the GET Fund. One of the main benefits is also to scale the project, and of course to scale the size of the investment as well, which is more attractive for financiers as well as for investors. So some of the scope of support provided by the GET Fund, including cost-benefit analysis, basically helping this group of cities to understand what are the costs involved and what are the impacts when it comes to integration of green and energy efficient strategy as part of the affordable housing construction as part of the urban development. And the second part of technical assistance is the development of short-term as well as medium-term action plans for cities to be able to plan further when it comes to integration of energy as well as resource efficient construction practices as part of the local government housing programs. And last but not least, the GAFAN also supported city in the development of a location suitability tool, as well as a housing calculator as well, so that cities will be able to make use of this tool, as well as housing calculator for them to identify suitable areas for new housing projects, and to help cities to understand as well with these new housing projects, what will be the climate resilient impact for the population within that area. So that's all for my presentation today, and I'll hand it back to Polly.
Thank you, Jazlyn, for that wonderful presentation on how, giving us an overview how CityGov Fund is assisting our cities in terms of improving their capacity during the early project preparation support. And what is actually also striking for me is that even during the early project preparation phase, we need to identify the financing mechanism so that this can actually have a good chance of actually offering it to different investors in this case, and also in particular giving us also some success stories and how cities have applied and used the process of CityGov Fund to further improve and actualizing their projects on local climate. So thank you again, Ms. Jazz, for that presentation. So from here, I'd like to last but definitely not the least in terms of the presentation, maybe we'd like to call Ms. Dulari Parmar, who's the lead in climate justice at the Youth for Unity and Voluntary Action. So let me introduce first Ms. Dulari. She's an architect based in Mumbai. She completed her master's program in urban design from Kamla Raheja Vidyanidhi Institute for architecture and environmental studies. At UVA, she contributes to the climate justice work. Dulari has played a crucial role in climate hazard mapping of the Mumbai metropolitan region and facilitated the community-driven climate vulnerability assessment in Ambudwaji, Malad. So through her work, she emphasizes the need for the marginalized groups, asserting that this tool can be leveraged by the communities to advocate for their rights. So Ms. Dulari, can you please take the floor, and we'd love to hear your presentation, how your organization is engaging the communities, in particularly perhaps with cities, on making sure that really no one is left behind in terms of addressing different climate issues, and also making people realize that they have a stake on this particular phenomenon. Take it away, Ms. Larry. You have 10 minutes for the presentation.
Okay. Thanks so much, Polly, for a very detailed introduction. I'll briefly share about our work at UVA today and hope to do justice to the presentation. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. Some of them are friends already, Kirti ji from INHAF, Kansa, CityNet, and others who are really anchoring this very important conversations on cities. I do know that Kirti ji always speaks about the urban challenge and how important it is to really lever our focus on the cities where the problems will be intensifying, and also the need for the focus on these in the urban areas. So I'll start with an introduction of the organization, of my organization. Youth for Unity and Voluntary Action is actually a 41-year-old nonprofit based in India. We work across different thematics, but I'll be presenting about our climate justice work. We of course have started working. We started working with working on habitat, informal work, youth rights, child rights. But now, very recently, we have started working on the climate justice. We work with marginalized communities, especially our climate justice work focuses in cities. A lot of our climate justice work speaks about the power imbalance that exists within our societies, within our cities, and how can we go beyond the ideas of tree plantation or plastic reduction to really see who are the most vulnerable to climate impact and what can we do about it together. We have a layered strategy which includes not only grassroots action but also working at the policy level, at city, local, and state level, and then towards narrative shifts of shifting towards this onus of climate action from an individual to the systemic issue of power. Um, we're working at across two important aspects and have very nascent work on just urban transitions and loss and damage, which is an emerging area of work. But since the past 5 years, we've been working specifically on adaptation and coping at the grassroots and through mitigation at the disaster risk reduction paradigm at the city level through development plans. Again, talking about the urban challenge that Kirtiji pointed out in his presentation or in his briefing right at the start, that India is an intersection of multiple inequalities, including caste, class, and gender, which shape everyday urban experiences in our cities. The state welfare role is shrinking. We're moving towards more and more constrained nature of our cities and very political for every matter, and also very polarized amongst different population and based on religion and caste. So we do know that the issue is at hand is very complex. Beyond that, over the past 5 years, like in just past 7 years, over 5 lakh populations were forcibly evicted from the communities that we work with, and more than 1 lakh houses demolished. And HLRN does immense work on the eviction and resettlement of these communities, but to really see the grasping issues that we're at, the state where our work is being stationed is in Maharashtra state, which is a state towards the western coast of India, with 51 million urban residents and more, 11.8 live in slums. So we're not talking about smaller numbers here. And also in terms of how they accommodate the city, there, of course, these are official figures which say that 42% of Greater Mumbai's population lives in slums, but we know that the official figures really go beyond that, more than 60% of our cities are really accommodated by slums and informal settlements. Just to give you a short context, that Maharashtra, the state which I just mentioned where we work with, is the third most vulnerable state in India, according to the latest report by CEW on district level vulnerability assessment. And Mumbai, where we work in the city, is one of the 5 most districts which is most vulnerable, again, with compounded impacts of heat, flooding, landslides, cyclones, and air pollution, and so on. So to combat all this issue that I laid out right at the start of my presentation, we have developed through a lot of iteration and a lot of engagement and a lot of feedback through and through within the teams, externally and at the grassroots, we have developed this 4-pronged approach to climate action, which I'll briefly take you through each step, starting with climate hazard mapping, where we map vulnerable communities or informal settlements or slums, as we call them, across the city. And to our surprise, Mumbai, being one of the financial capital of India, still does not have database on slums. a comprehensive database and updated database on the slums in the city. So we took that challenge to our own hands and mapped, geotagged all the bastis across the MMR. And upon these, we layered multiple hazards like flooding, heat, landslides, sea level rise, etc. to come up with 27 hotspots across the MMR, and through which we arrived at Ambujwadi. Ambujwadi is a urban poor settlement located along the western coast of Mumbai, very close to a beach and very prone to cyclones. So climate impacts, we can see that flooding and heat are the most common ones and very real and very true impact of climate change in terms of flooding and heat are seen in Ambujwadi. But beyond that, like any other basti, Ambujwadi also does not have access to land tenure security. There's very poor access to basic services, sanitation, and waste management. So compounded impacts and compounded issues at hand. To combat this, we came up with now this is the third step of our community climate action planning model, which is vulnerability assessment and CCAP, where the vulnerability assessment is literally grassroots with young climate educators, young residents, we call them climate educators from the community. So we started this work back in 2022, and then now we're leading towards the community climate action plan, which is again still in progress in Ambujwadi. I'll share some insights from the process that we did in the community with the young climate educators. And again, the educators or the young people from the community are no longer the receivers of climate solutions. They are a part of building the solutions for themselves, by which I mean they also learned how to use GIS, how to do geotagging in your own community, how to map climate vulnerabilities like flooding and heat. Where do you experience most heat? And what is the reason for flooding? So many such nuances were captured through our vulnerability assessment. And this was also compiled along with focus group discussions in the community with different stakeholders, and across different groups, across different vulnerable groups. Through the vulnerability assessment, we arrived at 10 important themes in the same community, which led us to analysis of the database that was collected over the period of 6 months. Here you can see the climate educators again mapping and understanding the community from a very nuanced perspective of understanding what are the interconnections between flooding and stormwater drains or garbage and health. I love this slide because it shows that this is the earlier version of the community. So Ambujwadi is almost housed by 60,000 population. So we know that the size is huge, but once the data collection, the vulnerability assessment was complete, we ended up with a map with so many colors and so many data points on each point in the community, showing so many problems, but also so many opportunities for intervention. To just share one problem that I would also like to share, the solution that we came up with it was in terms of stormwater drains. So the entire community has only a single line of main stormwater drain, while the rest of the basti is literally having no stormwater drain service whatsoever. And especially this red area that is marked, which is called the Patrachal, the Shantinagar Patta in this area, which does not have any service of stormwater drains. And most of the house floods because of lack of gutters in the community. So when we overlap this data with flooding, we realized what could be the solutions and what are the problems at hand. Then we had community patta or like cluster-wise discussion on what are immediate areas of action which can be taken up for advocacy at the local level. Then just 2 years ago, in fact, we did a dissemination of the People's Climate Action Plan or Community Climate Action Plan at the local ward office with the Assistant Municipal Commissioner. So to take all this information to the municipal corporation and the local government to see what is possible now, how can we collaboratively work together, and what funds are available at the local government to combat these issues. Some of these issues, the pressing issue was stormwater drains and its linkage to flooding, of how most of the bastis not serviced with SWD. So through a lot of advocacy and through many months of advocacy and multiple letters from the community members, we were able to push for stormwater drains to be installed in the community. Now, why this is so challenging is because the basti that we are working in, Ambujwadi, is a non-notified community. So when you're non-notified, you're not recognized by the government. And if you're not recognized by the government, you do not exist. So for a community to demand for something that officially does not exist is also a big challenge. But through this climate lens and through this climate change lens, we were able to push for some of these interventions to be installed in the community. So we really know that climate is an important lens recognized at the local government level too. Beyond that, we also expand our adaptations efforts towards nature-based solutions, looking at NBS in the community in previously extreme flooded area. What can people's participation, community ownership really do and transform that space to? And some of these efforts were recognized, very small wins, but important wins for us to be recognized at the India Nature-Based Solutions Forum just last year. So I would like to end my presentation with a wider political agenda that we want to, of course, we are expanding this work now from Ambujwadi. We have expanded this work to 3 other cities in Vasai Virar, in Navi Mumbai and Guwahati. But we also look at the policy integration that this really entails, which is integration at the city climate action plan levels, at the land use plan, through the financing, through the budget. And the advocacy for us, the larger advocacy for us is really trying to incorporate some of these demands into these larger statutory plans that exist nationally and at the state level. We're also looking at this tapestry of micro efforts, which is again beautifully written by Leila Mehta, where she talks about smaller efforts which actually enable macro transformations at the urban scale. And yes, of course, people-centered work. The work that I have shown so far has taken a lot of efforts and really determination from the team and also support from the local government. It can be messy, but so a small open space, when transformed in the community, really shifts power back to the people and creates long-term impacts which wouldn't happen if it was top down. So I'll stop here and wait to hear reflections from you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dulari, for that wonderful presentation. Striking for me is when you said during the last part, like micro efforts toward macro urban transformation and really engaging the stakeholders, even for some sectors that government doesn't recognize, we need to really help the government recognize them so that proper interventions can be allowed or can be offered to them. So time check now, it's 8:10. I apologize for exceeding the time. So I guess we've really had a very good presentation on different practices on city-scale climate action. We're looking some trends, we're looking some opportunities here. For our speakers, I encourage you to answer take time to answer some questions in the Q&A box. We would love if we can answer them. Definitely we won't be answering them in details now, but if we still have time, we can take time to answer. So again, thank you to Sir Vincent from Quezon City, from Taipei City, Jazlyn from the City Gap Fund, Mr. Anshul Abbasi from the National Institute of Urban Affairs, and also Ms. Dulari for all the time, for taking the time and really inspiring us to move further towards a local climate implementation. And before I end, let me just have three major, I think, highlights that I'm getting from this webinar, from this discussion that we have. Definitely, number one is planning is critical. I'm seeing across the presentations that really planning is integral to the success. It's critical. And most importantly, planning on how to finance your plan, your projects, is even more critical. And that includes the identification on the sources of finance. So that's number one. And then definitely solutions, climate solutions must reflect the conditions of not just the people, not just the population within the city, but also taking account the transient population, the daytime population. A city may only have like 10,000 population, but if it's a tourist site, you can expect double to visit you daily. And that has huge implications on climate. So on carbon as well. So taking account your city's peculiarities is also integral to a good also good in terms of developing solutions. That's number two. And number three, people have always been at the center of climate action as I see it across through the presentation. I'm seeing a lot of really efforts of empowering them through different policies, both from the city side, both from the non-state side, empowering them to look even for opportunities and solutions, guided by the institutions and people to further resolve their vulnerability, their climate vulnerability. So with that, I turn this, thank you again. And with that, I turn over to INHAF, to Kirti, to close the session. Kirti? All right. So if Kirti is, I don't see Sir Kirti here, but definitely, so on behalf of INHAF, we'd like to again thank our speakers, and please stay tuned for more of our webinars. INHAF has a lot of webinar sessions, so please look into their website, and definitely we'll be partnering with them to some of our future webinars. So with that, we'll conclude our program, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Dulari Benji,
Yes, sir.
आप हमारे एडवाइजर बन जाइए.
Kirti, we're already ending the program, so I guess we'll see you soon in the next webinar.
I'll speak to you, Dulari. I'm very serious. I really mean it. You're doing some very good work, and it is not only very meaningful. It has huge implications and possibilities, and especially while cities essentially struggle for solutions, this approach is and this work, to me, it's very important. And we're doing something in Chennai, and I thought we'd learn from you. So I think I'm going to make you my guru.
Not at all. Not at all. I have so much to learn from you. I'll stay in touch with you, Kirti, for sure.
No, we'll work
Thank you. Mr. Larry, Yuva is a member of CityNet, right?
No.
I suppose yes. No?
Yes, I think it's yes. So I need to check, and definitely if Yuva is a member of CityNet, let's explore further how we can develop some project ideas, especially in the line of our work. So I'll keep you posted. Yeah, I'll just Kirti, I think I'm going now. It's 8:15 here in Seoul, so I'll see you. Thank you again for your time.
Over. Anshul Bhai, Anshul Abbasi is still there. Anshul bhai?
Are you talking to me?
No, I think you go if you want to go.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It was a very good session, Paulo.
Oh,
And
good to hear
thank
that.
you very much. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye. Anshul bhai? Hello. You're muted, Anshul bhai. You're muted. Hello. Do you hear me, Anshul bhai? Okay. Thank you very much, and wonderful. That was good event, and we look forward to seeing you again. And we'll come back to you again. Thank you very much. Anshul bhai? Hello. Ashok? आणि पेली मिठाई लावली मी हा लेतो परत मी खायचे તડકો આવે ચાલશે હા Oh,